Bonjour, hi. Welcome back to another episode of CanadaOne, and it was recently Canada Day for the celebrating the independence of the greatest nation on this planet. I don't want to hear all you Americans going, "Oh, America's better." Shut up. It's Canada number one. By the way, okay, when we declared independence, we did it through paper. We didn't murder people. That's why we're better than you. I'm just joshing around. I'm just joking. Anyways, I recently attended a CanadaOne parade in my local municipality, where they shot off fireworks last night, and they had cover bands playing. One thing I found very interesting was that they were playing a lot of ethnic music. Let's just say. Now, can somebody please explain to me why on Canada Day, a day celebrating Canada's independence from Britain as a colony and becoming its own country, why they're playing Despacito at the Canada Day celebration and several other songs that weren't even in English on Canada Day. Imagine for a second, I went to the 4th of July celebration and I started playing Russian music. How would people feel in that situation? So that was the first thing I found appalling. Just an absolute disrespect and disregard for, what makes Canada Canadian. Well, Canada's a great country. And this is what everyone loves to say. Everyone loves to say that, when asked, why is Canada such a great country? They go, well, because of its diversity, because of its multiculturalism, because it accepts everyone. That's not why Canada's great. Canada's been great. Canada's been great without the mass migration. In fact, it's been better without the mass migration. Hot take, everybody. Canada's better off without millions of Indians coming in. Now, everyone's going to clip that and call that racist. You know what? I'm going to clip that. It's not racist because, here's the thing. Here's the issue, the fundamental issue. It's because would they integrate? That wouldn't be a problem. But the problem is they're not. And they're fundamentally changing the culture. They're changing our heritage. They don't give a shit. When they go to Canada Day celebration, you think they're celebrating the fact that we got independence? No, they're celebrating who knows what. They're just there for a free party, basically. Oh, is that racist now? I was literally at the Canada Day parade yesterday, the party yesterday, the concert, and there are people speaking not English. I truly believe this, that it should be illegal to speak any other language that's not English, French, or maybe a few indigenous languages. Truly, you shouldn't be allowed to come here and speak a different language. Sorry, get deported. Hot take, everyone. Matthew's coming up with the hot takes today. No, wrong, cold takes. Speak English, speak French. Gets bad when I'm the only French speaker and English speaker at my local retail establishment. Everyone else cannot speak both languages, even though our province, Quebec, is supposedly a bilingual one that has a more emphasis on French, and yet a lot of these people can't speak it. Anyway, so that was just a few things that pissed me off. The fireworks show was kind of mid. It wasn't that long, and then, had to run to our car so that we would beat traffic. And then, I don't know, it was just overall, I did see a lot of patriotic people, a lot of patriotic Canadians wearing, their Canada merch. And that was, it was refreshing to see. I like to see that. I like to see the, everything. But you know what I don't like to see? The future Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Poilievre, celebrating Canada Day at an Indian, celebration or rally. You can look up the pictures. And it just goes, and guess who else is there? Oh, Daniela Smith, the Premier of Alberta, hanging out at a Sikh, I believe, motorcycle gang rally or whatever it is. And that's really what I love to see. I love to see when Canadian politicians are pandering to all the immigrant groups, because that's really what makes this country great. It's not because of diversity that we're so great. Okay, we're great even with diversity. That's not to say that it's, an overall net negative. You can have some diversity, but generally countries should be for their own people. Is that wrong to say? Is that wrong to say that Japan should be for the Japanese or China should be for the Chinese? Oh, but you say Canada's for Canadians. You're a racist. But it goes back to this point that, politicians, as, native-born Canadians, and I mean native-born as in, not the actual indigenous, but you know what I'm talking about. As those people, as we become a smaller and smaller portion of the populations and we're quickly being replaced by, foreigners, it stands to reason that our political prowess, our political pull is becoming diminished over the past, several decades. And that's because the immigrant groups are building up bigger and bigger portions of the voter base. And fundamentally the problem, and this is again why it's such a big issue, it's because these people see themselves as immigrants. They see themselves as foreigners. If you come here and you say you're Canadian, you fully believe that you're Canadian, it's a completely different story. I don't care if you're Chinese, black, or, white, if you say you're fully Canadian. And, everyone's going to get, they're going to call me a racist. Oh, you just hate, people of color. If, a Russian, a Ukrainian came over here and they were speaking Russian or Ukrainian, I would still say ban them, okay? It's all immigrant groups I don't like. It's not just because of race. It's because I want Canada to be for Canadians. And then now you're seeing all the, apparently all these based politicians. Pierre Poilievre is so based that he's going to Indian rallies to, grab his support. And this is why I don't think that if you weren't born here, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. Oh, but I'm a citizen. I don't care. You should be born here. And here's the issue is that as the politicians have to begin pandering to more and more, obviously, what are they going to want? They're going to think, well, how do we stay in power? Let's bring in millions of more people because we know they're going to vote for us. Who do most immigrants vote for? Newly entered immigrants will vote liberal. Same thing in America. Who are all the illegals voting for? Democrats. So you're looking at all these things and it's like, well, there's a reason why these, right-leaning politicians have to pander so hard to these immigrant groups is because naturally they're going to vote left when they come here. And I think that's an issue. On Canada Day, maybe they should be celebrating with, Canadian residents instead of foreign temporary workers or whatever. And, I was having a conversation yesterday with someone from the People's Party. And what they told me is that the new immigration numbers just came out. They were revised for 2023. And essentially what has been happening is the government's been massively underreporting it. We thought it was more like 1.2 million, somewhere in that range, right, in 2023. Turns out it's more like 2.2 million. That's including, permanent residents, asylum seekers, refugees, temporary workers, temporary students, all these things. But it just goes to show the absolute, we were saying, well, look, if the same level would be in America, it's 11 million, 16 million or whatever. I don't remember the number, but, double it. Imagine 30 million people coming in every year to America. Would that be seen as a problem? Maybe. And then, this is why, and I'm going to get into the whole Sikh thing because this whole story about the defense minister is outrageous. But I just want to go to show what do I mean by everyone saying that Canada's greatest strength is this. This is Jagmeet Singh's, the leader of the NDP's statement about Canada Day. Today, families, friends, neighbors, and loved ones are getting together, having barbecues, going to beaches, and spending time together to celebrate the beautiful country we call home. A lot of them don't call them home, but listen to this. This is a time to appreciate what makes Canada unique. Our rich multiculturalism. Yes, it's very unique to Canada to have immigrants. Diversity and our willingness to take care of each other. We must ensure strong social programs that make Canada a good place to live are always there when people need them. These include universal public health care, dental care, and pharma care coverage that will help millions of Canadians stay together. This is also a day where we must recognize that for many indigenous peoples and communities, again, who doesn't seem like they integrated, today must be difficult as we reflect on the history of displacement and genocide for the first people. First of all, the use of genocide is so overstated. It's wild. The actual, where all this comes from was the Truth and Reconciliation actual report, the parliamentary report that, or the commission that actually looked at what happened, and what they called was cultural genocide, meaning that the white Europeans, or just the Europeans in general, were tried to assimilate and essentially worked at assimilating the native populations into broader European, culture and heritage. And they called that cultural genocide, which is completely different from actual genocide. Most natives that, were murdered by the Europeans just died because of disease. It's not the Europeans' fault that they all died from disease and that they didn't have the technology. And also, no bodies have been found in residential schools. I'm going to keep saying that because apparently people don't seem to understand. 0 bodies have been found. Canada was not based off of genocide. And to keep saying this, on Canada Day, we can't celebrate Canada Day because it's such a dark day because our past. Yeah, that happened in the past, okay? Canada's prosperous, and you're essentially doing the exact same thing that they did. You're claiming that all these indigenous people were displaced because they were trying to be assimilated. Now we're being, we're having all these other cultures come here, and we're just letting them free reign, and we're letting them grow and grow and grow and become larger portions of the voter base. And what do you think is going to happen? Politicians are going to continue to pander to these people until the actual Canadian citizens, who cares? They're a minority now. What happens when Canadians become a minority? It's crucial for us to recognize the past and work towards real, meaningful justice for Indigenous people. Some actual Indian from India, just got arrested a few days ago for pretending and essentially scamming the system that we've put in place to help the Indigenous people. By pretending to have Inuit children, I believe she received $150,000, almost $200,000 from the government in benefits by pretending they were Inuit, when in fact they were actually just Indian. So it just goes to show these Indigenous people are getting the support they need. They're getting massive amounts of money. And because the federal government's running it, the federal government doesn't have really a good pulse on what's going on in every reserve and every locality. Obviously, the federal government's going to be inefficient at, monitoring these things. Maybe the people should have more power to themselves. Maybe the localities, the municipalities, and the cities should have more power. Maybe a huge, overbearing, overreaching government. Conservative. Wrong. Paleo-conservative. I want no big government. I want no big business. Today, as Canadians from coast to coast to coast, marks Canada Day. Let's commit to building a country where everyone can live in dignity and peace, except for white European men. Let's work together to ensure that Canada can be a safe... yeah, I wonder who's causing all the crime. Shut up. Welcoming place where our children and grandchildren can thrive from generations to come. Yeah, except they can't get jobs because, foreigners are taking all the Tim Hortons jobs. Anyways, I want to get into this whole controversy. So this was a big story that just came out a few days ago, I believe. And the Liberal Defense Minister, Harjit Sajjan, okay? This was a bombshell report that came out. Ottawa is still reeling from Thursday's bombshell allegation that Liberal Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan personally directed Canadian Special Forces to rescue more than 200 Afghan Sikhs during the fall of Kabul. It was a directive, according to military sources quoted in the Globe and Mail, that diverted critical resources from the evacuation of Canadian citizens, translators, and other Afghans who aided Canada in its 2-decade-long war effort in the country. Let me just break down that statement. the Canadian Defense Minister, okay, who's a Sikh, also not born in Canada. Okay, this guy, during the pullout from the Afghanistan, the war in Afghanistan in August of 2021, during the pullout of Kabul, told the special forces of the Canadian military to protect Afghan Sikhs that had no, relevance to Canada, who had no connection, no ties, or very little ties to Canada, told them that they needed priority to be evacuated instead of Canadian citizens, translators, and actual Afghans who aided Canada. Think about that for a second. And you talk about, we don't have traitors in our government. This is another act of treason. So let's keep going. Sajan's family ties to the World Sikh organizations. So I wonder why these people why do we keep letting these people in higher up levels of government who we know have these tribalistic, attachments to their own people? Obviously, Indians are going to prefer Indians. Obviously, Sikhs are going to protect Sikhs, But apparently when whites try to protect whites, then you're a Nazi. Sounds familiar, huh? And this is just reckoning of a broader issue facing Canada right now. And what do I mean by that is that this whole Sikh Indian, battle that's been going on, it's happening in our country. There's a battle between two different ethnic groups from foreign countries that are battling it out in Canada, because Canada has been one of the largest receivers of Sikh populations who have been displaced from the Punjab region in India. And a lot of them have come to Canada, and a lot of them, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get a independent state from India, where Sikhs, who are a minority in India compared to Muslims and Hindus, where they're trying to get an independent state that's majority Sikh. And there have been a lot of what the Indian government's calling terrorists and what the Sikhs are calling freedom fighters or whatever. And this is happening on Canadian grounds. People are getting murdered on Canadian territories for a war that's not even in our country, that has nothing to do with our country. And then you look at, why is this bad? Well, it's because Justin Trudeau, by appointing these people in the government, is effectively ruining our relationship with India. First of all, I don't think we should have any relationship with any country, maybe besides America. All the other countries, and maybe, a few of our, ties that have been historical ties. But I think that Canada, first of all, foreign aid, zero. That's what I want. Here's a good policy platform, okay, when I become prime minister. Immigration, 0 plus deportation. Foreign aid, 0 plus give us all the money back that we gave to Ukraine and all these other countries. Tariffs, up, okay? Big businesses, out. I want small businesses. It's very simple, guys. Come on. And I'm not even going to pander to the immigrants. But it just goes to show, we spoke about the bombshell parliamentary report that said that there are foreign actors in our government. Again, none of the names of the members of parliament who literally committed treason have been released yet. And it seems like it won't be released for at least probably several years, if I had to guess. So you have these foreign people that in our government. Again, the defense minister wasn't born in Canada. We have people at the highest level of our government who aren't even Canadian. Oh, but, maybe he's integrated. Maybe he's integrated real well, where he puts priority of people who are just religiously affiliated with him over the citizens of the country he's supposed to be representing. All these Canadians. Save the Sikhs. That's the problem. These people don't integrate. That's the fundamental issue. It'd be a completely different story if they actually became Canadian, by every metric, but they're not. I want nobody in the government who have allegiance to foreign countries. I want nobody in the government who have dual citizenships. If you're in the Canadian government, you'll be a Canadian citizen, you will be born in Canada, and your full allegiance will be to Canada. That's, is that a hot take apparently now? Can't be president of the U.S. If you're not born in America, but when I say it for Canada, then that's a great issue. And then it just goes back to the pandering. So we're going to keep, Sajjan's family ties to the controversial World Sikh organizations were well known before he entered politics, so much so that his nomination for the Liberal candidate for Vancouver South in late 2014 prompted a number of moderate Sikhs in the riding to tear up their party memberships in protest. One such objector warned at the time that the Liberal Party, especially Justin Trudeau, is in bed with extremist and fundamental groups. This warning, and others like it, would regrettably go unheeded, with an ostentatious media seemingly more concerned about the young upstarts Lucius Locks and Socks. What? This is why nobody reads the media. What is this garbage? The soon-to-be Prime Minister Sorbid bet would nevertheless pay off over the short term, with Sajjan as the party's candidate. An upstart Liberal would easily flip the Conservative-held riding in the next year's federal election. This, guys, what this screams to me is more foreign interference. You don't think that they know that, okay, let's go in this highly populated area where there's a lot of, ethnic or whatever. There's a lot of minorities and there's a lot of Sikhs as voters. Let's put this guy in, and essentially it's an easy win because, these people are going to vote for whoever they think is like them the most because, again, fundamentally, they see themselves as foreigners. But would it surprise me? Would it shock me to hear that the World Sikh Organization, who, I believe his father, Sajjan's father, is like one of the top guys at the world, anyways, would it surprise me that the World Sikh Organization would have paid for, would have funded, maybe would have colluded to get these people into power? No, it wouldn't. More foreign, we know that there's foreign interference. Why wouldn't this be the case? Especially if they know they're going to win. It didn't take long for controversy to follow Sajjan in his new role. He would notably be forced to apologize in 2017 over a pattern of misleading statements he made embellishing his record of military service in Afghanistan. The apology came on the heels of Sajjan's disastrous diplomatic visit to India, where he was publicly snubbed by Punjab's top elected official over his alleged ties to Sikh separatists. Again, we're having a conflict infinitely far away from us happening in our own territory. That shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't be taking sides. Let's just nuke the whole region. That's a joke, everybody. Okay, it's a joke. I don't want to. Harjit Singh is less politician than a walking red flag. Oh, sorry. Sajjan would somehow manage to keep his job as defense minister for 6 years, despite garnering reviews that were middling his best throughout his turbulent tenure in the portfolio. In June 2021, just 2 months before the ill-fated Afghanistan evacuation, he was censored by his colleagues in the House of Commons for abysmal handling of rampant sexual misconduct in Canada's military. Harjit Sajjan is less politician than a walking red flag. Okay, a controversial rookie should have been blah, blah, blah. In the summer of 2021, it was abundantly clear to anyone paying attention that Sajjan was unfit to be Canada's defense minister. No one should be surprised by the critical lack of judgment and ethics he allegedly showed amidst the Afghanistan evacuation. He's still in power, by the way. They didn't even fire him. Take, for instance, the word of ex-liberal foreign policy advisor Omar Aziz, who wrote last fall about the Prime Minister's fear of losing the Sikh vote to the NDP after Jagmeet Singh took the helm of the party in 2017. Singh, coincidentally, chose to run for a seat in Greater Vancouver after winning the leadership race. I wonder why. Because politics, as we continue mass migration, what does it become? It becomes pandering. It becomes essentially just an ethnic vote. Minorities will vote likely left. The whites will vote right-wing more. The women will vote left-wing. And this is why most people shouldn't be allowed to vote. Women shouldn't be allowed to vote. Most men shouldn't be allowed to vote. If you don't own a home, you shouldn't be allowed to vote, probably. Now everyone's going to come up, oh, Matthew, you don't own a home. That's because I haven't voted yet. Take that, libtard. I'm just telling you who to vote. That's a joke. I'm not telling anyone who to vote for. I'm just trying to have a free discussion of information, which apparently free speech is gone in this country, but nobody wants to talk about that. So let's just keep voting in people who aren't even Canadian, who aren't even born in this country, and whose allegiances are 100% to other people, and don't even serve the interest of of the population of this country. But I'm the bigot. There was a big fuss about this anti-Muslim truck in Toronto, I believe. It was a truck with several panels on the side, several screens displaying what was called Islamophobic statements, which, by the way, weren't even, okay. It just said, I believe it was like, is this Syria? Is this Iraq? Is this whatever? It's like, no, this is Canada. And it showed a bunch of pictures of like people, in full burqas and hijabs praying or whatever to Islam or whatever. And everyone got into a big fuss. They're like, this is hate speech. This is why Islamophobia is so rampant, right? Then later, Rebel News, who's a more right-leaning news organization, later came out and said, yeah, we own the truck, right? And ultimately, I think the messaging's totally fine. I do agree. This isn't Syria. This isn't, Afghanistan. This isn't Kabul. But this is Canada. And Canada, what are we? We are a majority Christian nation, European descendant nation, white nation. Now everyone's gonna go, oh, you want an ethno state? No, I'm not advocating for that. I'm just speaking facts. What is the history of Canada? And it's these things. So yeah, if you want to practice all those aspects of your culture, maybe practice them in your own country. Maybe practice your own religious beliefs in your own country. It's not to say we don't have the freedom of religion, but to say now that as you become a more and more influential percentage of the populations, just because of numbers, through mass migration policies, again, 2.2 million last year, what do you think is going to happen? And these people are openly advocating for let's turn Canada to Sharia. No, go back to your shit country and fix it, maybe. You want Sharia? Go back. Go back to Afghanistan. They have it. Why were you complaining when why are you complaining that Canada doesn't have it when you have 30 countries which do have it? So what's the problem? Oh, you want the standard of living that, Christian Canada has created without the oppression of Sharia. Yeah, I'm not making a value statement on Islam as a whole. I don't think that's fair to say, and I'm also not an expert, as they say. And then what happened is that after, this truck came out, a bunch of people on X were starting to talk about, they're like, well, if this is hate speech, then what about this other truck from a few months before that, I believe, where it was like, Zionism is colonialism, or something anti-Zionist, right? Something slightly anti-Jewish, perhaps. It wasn't even anti-Jewish. I think it was just anti-Zionist. And they're like, well, then this is also hate speech. right? And that's the issue. A lot of these conservatards, they don't really see the duality. It's like, okay, you want free speech for anti-Islamophobic or anti-whatever, right? But then you don't want free speech when it comes to attacking Zionists or attacking Jews. I find that to be an interesting balance. It's like I thought we were all for free speech, right? It's okay to have free speech when we make fun of the brown people, but you want to make fun of the Jews? No, that's not okay. You're going to prison. So, I find that odd a little bit, that there's not, either you're for free speech or you're not. Don't pretend to be free speech for certain aspects and then not for other aspects. It seems like anyways. But, it does bring up an important point that does say that, yeah, Canada has its own identity. We have our own culture. And I have to keep repeating it because people don't seem to understand. People seem to be too passive for these things. Canada has its own heritage, its own value system based in Christianity. It has its history, it has its culture. And culture is not something that's easily definable. But, broadly speaking, it is essentially the people that make it up. And if you drastically change the demographics of a certain place, then the culture will change. Those people, if you, let's say, take 100 people and then you introduce 50 new people who have their own culture from somewhere else, do you not think that the culture ultimately will be shifted? You truly believe that all those people will be able to completely integrate? No, it's a false, it was a completely different story when Canada's population was 20 million and we were bringing in, 100,000 immigrants a year. It's much more different now that we're at 40 million and we're bringing in 2.2 million every year. It's a fundamental different story because these people aren't able to mass integrate. That's just another lie that we're being told. But it goes to show that, yes, Canada has massive foreign influences, not only running our government, but just shifting the cultural landscapes ever so slightly every single year as politicians realize that they have to pander more and more to certain groups. We saw it with Justin Trudeau. We saw it with Pierre Poilievre. We saw it with all the other parties. The only one that hasn't done it, Maxime Bernier. Speaking of Maxime Bernier, I found something quite funny. He is doing his Canada-wide tour right now with the People's Party. And right now, I believe he was in Charlottetown, PEI. And as we know, what's been going on in Charlottetown is the student or the foreign worker, the student visa protesters, these Indians who are protesting because the province is saying, look, we have too many people and you guys don't bring real benefits because you're low skilled, low IQ, whatever. And they're saying, well, we have to reduce. And I believe it was a 30% reduction in nominations for permanent residency for temporary workers or student visas. I don't even think it was a drastic decrease. It was like 30%. Anyways, there was a huge protest of all these Indians who are having their visas expiring. And they're saying, well, we should be allowed to get our whatever. We should be Canadian citizens. So Maxime Bernier pulls up and he starts arguing with the main guy who's the main representative, who I believe also spoke to Harrison Faulkner a month ago. And basically, it just shows either a language barrier or at least the fact that these people are like genuinely stupid. Maxim goes, once your visas expire, you will be deported and you should be deported. That's what he was arguing. The retard who was arguing with him was going, nobody here has their permits expired. As if you can't imagine a situation. I believe it was an interesting psychological or some type of experiment which showed that lower IQ people aren't able to create scenarios based off of what ifs or imagine scenarios in their heads. You go, the example that was used is like, imagine if you didn't have anything for breakfast today. How would you feel at lunchtime? Something like that. And someone with a lower IQ would go, well, I had breakfast, so why are you asking me this? Something along those lines. And that's exactly what it was mimicking. It was like, no one in this organization has their permits expired. And then he goes, no, if and when they get expired, you should be deported, and you will be deported. And then the guy fully changed it. He's like, nope, we won't be deported because the province will give us our whatever, which I think which they know is not true because that's what they're protesting. But I think what's going to happen is that they'll just become illegals. I don't think they'll leave. I don't think most of these people will leave. If, let's say, out of the 100 people, I don't think a lot of them will leave. I think they'd rather live in Canada. I thought it was a study permit. You came here to get your education up, and then you left. That was the deal. That's supposedly the deal. But now you're saying, well, we want to become Canadian citizens because you realize how much better it is in Canada. Anyways, I found it very funny, the argument that Max was having, and I found it very blunt and something that, Pierre Poilievre would never have said. So I found that, very, very funny, to be honest. And there's another thing he goes, we don't need you here. He says this to the guy's face. We don't need you here. You need to leave. He goes, we have college kids and high school kids who can work at Tim Hortons. We don't need you. This guy's too based. Yo, W. Maxime Bernier, as usual. But I think that's, that's fundamentally the truth. These people are here to work low-skilled jobs with low labor, and the companies love it because, they don't have to they push down wages. We know this. We don't need more Tim Hortons workers who can't speak English. Now, there's this, this trend in Canada, at least culturally, where everyone's going, well, Tim Hortons has fallen off so hard in recent years. I can't believe the quality of Tim Hortons is so bad. And I think that there's kind of like a dog whistle, or it's like it's an unspoken, reality that kind of everyone's maybe accepting. And there's a reason why there's a decline in Tim Hortons quality. And it's not really because Restaurant Brands International, merged with Burger King and created a larger multinational corporation, which again has dual headquarters, so it's essentially two separate entities. But it's because of the people they're hiring. I'm the only white person at my Tim Hortons. I'm the only one, essentially one of the only ones who can speak French or English. The problem is when you bring in all these people, I thought the deal was these people speak French, these people speak English. But no, they can't. They either just speak English, and then when you speak to them in French, they have literally no idea what you're saying. And, you want to talk about the decline of Tim Hortons. It goes, well, why is that? Because you have people who don't really care, who don't really understand the significance of the brand and, the cultural phenomenon that is the brand of Tim Hortons. This is one of, Canada's staple, almost sacred institutions, sacred brands that has been absolutely decimated because of mass immigration, because of foreign temporary workers, because of people on student visas, and because of, management's decision and the Canadian government's decision to bring in these people to keep wages. Tim Hortons would rather keep wages low to prop up the bottom line, not really understanding that the degradation of their brand over the long term will be to a bigger detriment than keeping those salaries low. What used to happen is you used to have people who were born in Canada, who went to school in Canada, who spoke the appropriate languages in Canada, who are part of the community, who grew up understanding what it meant to go to Tim Hortons. So then when they would come and work, they would actually, kind of care about what their jobs. They would care about the customer service instead of going, anything else? Okay. When I speak to people, I kind of connect with them. I don't feel like a piece of shit and going, all right, next, I like to talk with the people of the community. And that's something that's being lost with When you bring in people whose cultures are completely foreign, they're not going to understand these nuances that we've built up over generations. Right? When someone orders or someone's at the cash, they just think, oh, it's about speed. Make it as quickly as possible. It's speed, speed, speed. It's not about that. It's about equality. It's about something deeper. It's about maybe putting in a little bit of care. Maybe caring a little bit about where you work, about how you look, about how you smell. Haha, Indian joke. Because the entirety of India smells bad. But you have to put a little bit of care in it. I think that's, it's predicative of broader Canadian issues. And it's not just Tim Hortons, obviously. It's all these other brands, Canadian or not. You see a massive decline in customer service. You see a massive decline in just overall satisfaction when you go shopping, when you go to eat, or whatever it might be. And there's a reason why. I wouldn't necessarily be so quick to blame the company. Obviously, the company's facilitating these things. And they're screaming, labor shortage, labor shortage. By the way, they've been screaming labor shortage since the 1970s, okay? The labor shortage isn't real. It's just, it's just a mystical thing to bring in more people. Anyways, I think Maxime Vernier is pretty based, and I'll be very excited to meet him at the Revision Conference in Gatineau in the beginning of August in 1 month. I'm hoping to get a good video out for that. But, as usual, I will not be pandering to any of you people, okay? You will be Canadian. I'm only going to pander to one group, and that's Canadians. Screw you. Canada first. CanadaOne. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll catch you next time.